All right, so because the tournament should be tipping today, we decided to give you a quick bonus episode to get you through this miserable day. We got an interview with NC State student Max Goren. If that name doesn't sound familiar, well, he's the kid that gave us a regular season one shining moment video that went viral on Twitter. So before we get to Max, let's hear a quick message from Zach at the Barnburner Podcast Network. Hey, what's up, man?
What's up?
How are you? I'm Taryn. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thanks again for hopping on. I appreciate it.
That's no problem.
Awesome. I mean, it's not like we have a ton else to do, right?
Exactly.
I'm just waiting on my co-host to hop on. It'll be about like 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, cool.
So are you from Carolina?
Yeah, I'm home right now. This is my house in Louisville, which is outside of Winston-Salem, which is about an hour and a half from NC State.
Gotcha. Very cool. I only asked that because I had a good buddy who is from Sanford, North Carolina.
I've heard of that. I'm just not exactly sure where it is.
Gotcha. This is my buddy Taylor.
Yo, what's happening, boys?
How are you?
Just fucking twiddling my thumbs all fucking day, pretty much at this point. So, dude, I like the lid though. The old school Suns hat.
Yeah, I got that at a Goodwill.
Love it.
Yeah.
Represent. You knew you were getting on with some Arizona boys here. You know, it was the right time for the Suns hat today.
I honestly had no idea. I had to get this out of my my dorm yesterday though, because I basically moved everything out.
Oh yeah, right. No, I feel you.
Nice. Yeah. So like I said, Max, it's just very informal. We're just gonna conversational, whatever. But yeah, you guys both good?
Whatever you want, Sue.
Cool. All right, we now welcome to the show NC State student. He's also the creator of one of the funniest and finest pieces of art. I'm actually going to redo that intro because it's not funny, but it's just perfect. All right, we now welcome to the show NC State student Max Goren. He's also the creator of one of the finest pieces of art I've ever seen, and that is the regular season one shining moment video he created that has since gone viral on Twitter. Now, Max, you're not back at school, right?
No, they really don't want us to come back for a while.
How are you occupying yourself right now during this time?
I haven't had a ton to do hanging out with my girlfriend and my family and my dog and all that, and just kind of like relaxing. Watched all the Christian Bale Batman movies. Just finding ways to pass the time.
I like it. Yeah. So I want to dive into this one shining moment video. The reason I say it is one of the finest pieces of art is because we are all struggling at a time like this. We are college basketball diehards. I know we just met maybe about 5 minutes ago, but I mean, we are downtrodden, hurt, broken. How long did it take for you to create this video?
Well, from when I sat down to start actually working on it, the actual process of making was about 3.5 hours. I guess I kind of had the idea or so maybe like the day before, but like sitting down actually like finding the clips and putting it together it couldn't have been more than 3.5 hours.
Well, that's actually pretty good then. I think.
Yeah, it wasn't too difficult. Actually, I just kind of added clips. Like I downloaded the song first, and then I just added clips as I went until I got to the end, pretty much.
Right. So I'm trying to think, Max, what year in school are you?
I'm a freshman.
Shit. So to get the NCAA tournament taken away your first year on campus, I don't even know.
Yeah,
that's kind of like it's like you don't know what you got till it's gone type of deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're all hoping. Like, I have a couple of friends, being in sport management, that we're pretty avid followers of sports, especially like the big ones like football and basketball. And we were sort of tracking like the bubble chances all year, but we are all in pretty much in agreement that we're gonna have a lot deeper team next year, just because by circumstance this year there are only like 7 guys that played big minutes for NC State. So hopefully, if we're not postseason banned next year, they can make a run again.
Well, so do you think you would have been in this year? I mean, you were one of the few teams that would have had to sweat it out on Sunday, and we've discussed how much it must suck for teams like Rutgers and Penn State and all those other Cinderellas that were for sure in. Do you guys think you would have been in?
They were trending up. It was one of those situations where, and this is why I think they weren't able to really do the bracket, because it would have depended on what happened on Thursday and Friday and in conference tournaments. But they were trending up, and a lot of other bubble teams like Xavier and Indiana had kind of been trending down. So I thought they were looking like they might be in. If they had been able to play on Thursday and gotten a win over Duke, I think they certainly would have been in.
Yeah, I saw. I think it was at least in Lunardi's bracket, you guys were in. So you grew up. Did you grow up an NC State fan?
I did not, actually. Being in Winston-Salem, my dad was on TV news doing sports for like 20 years. And he's also very involved with Wake Forest, and he still does sideline reporting for their football team. So we had season tickets to basketball and football for like as long as I can remember. So I grew up being a Wake fan, and as many people know, under the guidance of Danny Manning and Jeff Pozdelic, they haven't had a lot of success. So, being on campus at NC State, being a lot closer to that community, and also having something to be hopeful about, I was able to sort of throw my allegiance behind them.
Well, since we're talking about coaches, I actually was at a bachelor party with a guy who went to Wake Forest, talking with a lot of Wake Forest guys. I don't understand how Danny Manning's still there. Is it a contract buyout?
It sounds, yeah, it's always sounded like a money thing, because it was whoever it was that reported it. They're a private school, so they don't have to release the details of his extension he got after the year they went to the first 4, which is the only year that they've made the tournament. It was in his 3rd season. They just finished his 6th, and they said that his buyout is like $18 million, which sounds absolutely preposterous. But that's the only reason anyone really cites as why he could possibly still be there.
All right, good for Danny Manning. He gets himself an extension after making the first 4. Those are some incredible standards.
Everyone says that he must have like the best agent.
And now I really want to talk about Kevin Keats, because in our preview episode way back in like August, I had said Kevin Keatts was going to win ACC Coach of the Year. There were some up and down moments. Obviously, Leonard Hamilton deserved it. But do you think either you or your school owes me some sort of apology or make good because of the Keatts and like you guys kind of finishing, middle of the pack, pun absolutely intended?
A lot of it was certainly out of his control. Blake Harris, who was a backup guard, left the team in October. Almost every major rotation player missed some time because of an injury or, in DJ Funderburk's case, a suspension. Some players got injured multiple times, like Manny Bates. So he didn't have a ton to work with, although there's a pretty decent divide, and I think it kind of got smaller as the season went on because where they ended up wasn't great, but it sort of, like I said, was trending in the right direction. There's a divide between State fans who like Kevin Keatts and State fans who just don't believe in him anymore, even though it's only year 3, because this fan base has the most overblown expectations ever. But I'm a believer in Kevin Keatts, and I think with a better roster, he has a good recruiting class coming in next year. He'll be a pretty deep team. I think he can show what he's really made of, like he did in his first season next year.
So I'm not an NC State fan, of course, here, but I feel like I'm in the same boat with your fans that have high expectations of NC State. I can't think of a tournament that NC State made, and I wasn't like, I'm picking them to the Sweet 16 at least. Do I just have a strange addiction to a school completely across the country for me? How did your fan base, that half of your fan base, convince me that I needed to be a part of them?
I think it was a Gottfried thing when he was the coach. Like, they made a couple tournaments. 2015 is when they beat Villanova in the second round and went to the Sweet 16. And a couple years before, they played in the first 4 and they won a couple games in that tournament, I think. So I mean, they went pretty deep in that year. Keatts, they've only played the one game in year 1, and they lost in the first round. But I think something about the way they play is that when it's a tournament and it's just you just need to win one game at a time, they just have something about them that makes you think, well, yeah, they could win a couple games. They could string a hot streak together. And when they're hot, they're as good as any team in the country.
Taylor, I'll tell you the 2 names that have really turned us on to NC State, and it started with Julius Hodge and more recently Cat Barber. Those are our boys. So,
I'm going back to CJ Leslie. He had one of the all-time great high school mixtapes. He played for. Did he play for Word of God Academy with like John Wall? I think I can't remember, but I think part of it has to do with that or North Carolina as a whole, but NC State always seems to have, like, you look at their roster and like they got some athletes, they got some talent.
That's like I mean, you'd think with Kevin Keatts' system, you'd think they want guys who are just like shooters, but they end up, and it's been this way for the last like bunch of seasons. It's a bunch of like 6'5" to 6'7" wings, athletic guys, and they can all run and cut to the basket. And as everyone knows, Keatts likes to press, bring the pressure. So in that way, they can fit. Like Devin Daniels. I'd say Devin Daniels is like the prototypical Kevin Keatts NC State wing player. Like, he's one of the best on-ball defenders in the ACC, and when he turns it on, like, he can just slash and score and do whatever he wants.
I feel like Houston is my equivalent to NC State when I think of, like, oh, well, they got athletes. You know, they can defend, and then you realize, and then for some reason they don't put it all together for more than like 22, let's call it, games per season. I don't know why I always think that about them. I think it goes back to maybe just that there's so much talent within North Carolina, and that maybe it was a Herb Sendek thing. You know, we know Herb Sendek very well from his time here at ASU. Maybe I look that far, or that, long ago. Maybe that's why I always think of NC State.
So I want to pivot back to your video, though, and we'll get more NC State questions in. But you had mentioned that it only took you about 3.5 hours to find these clips. What was your criteria for getting these clips? How did you decide on which clips were going to be included?
So, I mean, I wanted to, recognize like the greater players and plays and moments like Stephen F. Austin against Duke, like everyone remembers that. That's like they're one of the biggest wins in their program's history, and that's one of the great moments. I wanted to include the good players, like at least recognize like Miles Powell and Luka Garza and Obi Toppin. And then another part of it is just like finding clips that had good angles and replays that would belong in a one shining moment video, because I wanted it to be obviously it's not broadcast CBS's official quality, but I wanted it to at least have that sort of feeling where it was like those professional angles without all the score bugs and logos on the screen. So I mean that's also another reason why a lot of things got left out, just for the sake of convenience, to be perfectly honest.
Have you seen any pushback, or did you have any pushback from like a copyright standpoint now, especially since it blew up? Did anybody reach out to you and say, hey, don't use our shit?
Well, the pushback has not been from a copyright standpoint, because it's not monetized. I just posted it up there for fun. Pushback has been from fans of programs that are not happy with the way their schools are represented in the video. As many are aware, the Duke fans are not super happy about the amount of times the highlights are against them.
That's a real shocker right there.
Yeah, are they ever happy about anything? Nerds.
I don't really so much have a problem with Duke so much as the other school in the triangle, and everyone who knows me knows that like the only clips of UNC are a tip-off against Syracuse and Leaky Black hanging his head after they lost to Duke. But yeah, I mean, fans of that, Rutgers, I feel like I should have included a lot of these, because I did watch a lot of college basketball, and I feel like I didn't do them justice. But teams like Rutgers and Penn State with Lamar Stevens, and San Diego State, who was the #1 team in net for most of the season, their fans are not thrilled exactly, but I did what I could, and like I said, a lot of it did come out of the sake of convenience.
No, I mean, it's insane. In a time of need, you step up and you put out this video and you got people pissing and moaning. I will say, as an Arizona fan, within the first 30 seconds, you have a clip of Ira Lee, and I think it was Brandon Will. It was after a Nico Mannion crossover and then flush. I was like, all right, he got us in early. It was pretty lengthy for a 3.5 minute video. So from one individual to another, I'll give you an elbow dap. We can't
no handshakes.
All right,
Arizona didn't deserve any more time than that either. Like that was the maximum
they
amount of time
Arizona they were celebrating. That's just what belonged there. Just like
must have been the only time we celebrated all year, I think.
They beat Wake. They beat Wake in the I don't even remember, some early wooden legacy tournament.
You're right.
Hang a banner.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I keep mentioning it, how this video has alleviated our pain for a little bit. Did you create this with the intention of doing that, or were you just saying to yourself, you know what, fuck it, I want to see a march or a one shining moment, I'm going to go ahead and create one?
Yeah, pretty much the latter. It was just some I was kind of messing around with. I did for fun. I didn't tell anyone about it when I was doing it, and when I posted it, the extent was just like posting it on Twitter, and that was it. And then someone from Axios newsletter found it and asked me some questions, and then as soon as that got sent out, it kind of blew up.
Damn. You know, I hate that we just had an Axios newsletter reference, because I do a similar newsletter every morning to Axios. Damn, this could have been me. This could have been the Warm Up Daily's fucking push here. But props to you for actually like doing it and releasing it, because I think everybody at some point goes and does something that like, oh, this would be cool, but fuck it, nobody would ever care about it, you know. So big props to you for actually like doing it. Have you ever done? I mean, have you published other video, or not published maybe, but made other videos for any other sports like that?
What I've told people is that like the extent of my video editing knowledge is like for school projects and stuff, and I would mess around with my friends like making YouTube skits in the past before, but like even with sports, I doubt I've ever, not that I can really remember, like specifically actually making a video about sports or anything like that. So but it's really not as complicated as most people make it seem. Like I didn't really do all that much. I I clipped together a couple of clips I downloaded from YouTube and set it to One Shining Moment. I mean, it's not really the hardest thing in the world.
So Dana O'Neill, I saw tagged you, wrote a story about you. Who's the coolest person that has tagged you on Twitter, reached out to you, interacted with you? Is it Dana? Who are some of the individuals that have been in contact with you?
Yeah, so there have been some interesting ones. She reached out very early. She was probably the first one to reach out to me and ask about it, and she had her story up by like 3 o'clock on Selection Sunday. Like she was very quick.
Did she like interview you? Or
Yeah, we did a phone interview. Probably, and what really set it off was when Seth Davis had seen it on the newsletter and he tweeted it out, and that's when all of the responses started to come in. That was cool. Clark Kellogg quote tweeted it. Roy Hibbert was in the replies saying that he needed that, which was kind of unexpected. And there have just been a lot of other like miscellaneous like I'm on this podcast with you guys. I've never really done a podcast before, and someone who does like blogs for the New York Times, and there was even a guy who represents an NFL player. He's an NFL agent. He asked me if I would do like if I've done highlight tapes or if I would want to consider an internship with them, and it's just spiraled into a whole lot of crazy interactions that I didn't think I was going to have.
Well, let me tell you, man, on the ladder of those interactions, we are probably the second step or maybe the first step as opposed to some of those other guys like Roy Hibbert, Dana O'Neill, Seth Davis, Clark Kellogg. But so, I mean, shit, man, you're big time. So we appreciate you hopping on for us.
I'm not doing all that much. You know, I did a phone radio interview for someone's sports talk show in Montana yesterday. So,
hey, all right, great state of Montana.
You're making the media rounds here.
Yeah,
I was gonna pick University of Montana far too. I even had my Montana Grizzlies hat on in some of our previous shows. But so you're saying that you've got better offers than like being our producer next year, for example?
no, I mean, yeah, I mean the extent of the offers is just one for an unpaid internship. So it hasn't really translated into a lot of professional opportunities, if that's what you're asking.
Well, the good part is you've got the notoriety now with these people. So when you do graduate, or you could say, "Hey, Seth, remember I was the guy that made the video when we didn't have a tournament?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you have at least an in theoretically to say like, hey, I've done some shit, even if it was only 3.5 hours worth of shit. You'd be like, hey, look at me, I was in there. What can you do for me now? Where do you need me?" So that's more than anyone. Shit, people get degrees and internships and get less out of it than you did for a 3.5 hour video. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. What I really want to do, because I'm studying sport management, because it's between that and communications, because I want to do sport broadcasting as my career. I always want to do like play-by-play. I want to do it for college football, college basketball. So, maybe I can talk to Seth Davis. Maybe I can't do like the Sweet 16, but who knows? Maybe I can get on the first four. I can do play-by-play on True TV since nobody knows what channel it is anyway.
Oh man, you made the joke. I'm glad we were spared.
No one could make the joke because they would have been making it today, but now we can't.
I will say, okay, true. Yeah, you are stepping up to the plate. You've provided us with One Shining Moment video. You've also provided us with what's now been a 40-year-old joke that, what's the True TV channel?
I mean, I can find it pretty easily, but I guess I'm a pretty locked in fan. Yeah, I wouldn't miss the games, even the 16 games.
Well, that's what was going to be part of what the show we were supposed to have this week was the how do you prep for the tournament podcast is what we were going to have. And the number one thing I said, well, other than having like a cooler of beer next to you, is have your remote and make sure the last 4 channels that you've had are the channels the tournament's on. So you can just hit
go
last.
Back to True TV so you don't lose it.
Right, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the main talking points we were going to have today.
Yeah, I wanted to also talk about bracket etiquette, right? So Max, who do you root for? If you have, let's say, you have a number 1 overall seed winning the title and they're in a dogfight with the 16, don't be that asshole that's still rooting for your bracket, right?
Well, I mean, usually by the time the 1s and 16s are playing, my bracket's already been destroyed. Although I'm very big into the statistics when I do the brackets. So I will do all the insane shit. Like I will save Reddit posts that like point out the statistical trends in the champions, and ESPN lets you make 25 brackets every year, and I make 25 brackets every year, and usually by like the fifth game of the first day, they're all wrong. So at some point, it's just like rooting for the fun stuff, for the upsets, and then later on worry about your bracket winning the late games, so you get more points and beat your friends and don't lose money.
So you bring up an interesting point here. So you made 25 brackets, right? So I always make the maximum amount simply from a monetary standpoint, like, right? So if they're going to give me an opportunity to win $1 million, you might as well make 25, or you make 25 of them. But do you have one that's the real bracket? Because
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like that.
the first one.
Yeah, okay, right. Because you can't go to your buddies and be like, yo, bracket 23 was fucking sick,
I mean, yeah, you can try that later, but there's the first one you make that's all your real picks, and sometimes what I usually do is I used to have a neighbor back when I lived in my last house, and we would always do Selection Sunday. We'd watch Selection Sunday. We'd always make an initial bracket like on paper, and a lot of the time what I would do is I would make that the first one on ESPN site or whatever, but even by the time I get to the computer, sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know about that, like I think a couple of years ago, I picked Arizona to win the national championship the year they lost to Buffalo in the first round on my paper bracket. So, sometimes the initial picks aren't all that great.
Definitely.
Well, that makes 3 of us, I guess, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's another bracket etiquette is if your team is in it, do you take your team to go to win it all? So, I mean, that's something that I subscribe to. It's stupid. It's pissing away $20 every single year. I understand that, but it's a pride thing at that point. So, Max, with this video going viral, you've acquired a certain level of fame. I don't know where that level is. How are you handling that? I feel bad for you because you're not able to like swing nuts at NC State's campus. You're just quarantined at home.
Yeah, I mean, no, I would certainly say it's a very, very, very low level of fame. Like I'm like I said, I'm doing like
This podcast,
yeah. No offense, but I'm doing like local news interviews, and my parents are making fun of me like, hey, social media superstar, go roll the trash bin in. But yeah, I'm sure if I were on campus, a couple of my friends who are more like tuned into the college basketball and the sports part of it would recognize it a little bit, but for the most part, I'm sure most of the people probably wouldn't really care.
Oh, like the dad and family and grandparent jokes that must come from this, in the other direction. And those are going to last forever too. They're going to say, hey, social media superstar, bring the trash in for
yeah.
probably ever now, right?
Yeah, probably. Hopefully, I'm sure it'll die down after this week or so.
So, Max, I'll get you out of here on this, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Your Mount Rushmore of NC State basketball. Now, it doesn't have to be limited to just players or coaches. It can be a combination of both. Your take on the Mount Rushmore of NC State basketball?
Well, I consider my knowledge maybe a little rudimentary because, like I said, I wasn't the most avid follower. But as someone who has tried to catch up after becoming a part of NC State, the one definite inclusion would be David Thompson. Some will say that he might be the greatest ACC player in college ever. Obviously, like Michael Jordan would go on to be an insanely good pro, but I think in his last season, David Thompson averaged like 30 points, and they broke UCLA, John Wooden's championship streak. So he definitely belongs up there. It's hard not to put Jim Valvano up there for what he did. His story is obviously one of a kind. Beyond those two, it doesn't become as super clear who really belongs up there. You could put any one of the bigger contributors from the 1983 team, like Derek Whittenburg. You might want to include someone like Julius Hodge up there. Julius Hodge was dominant in his era before and after Chris Paul punched him in the nuts. But and that actually cost Wake Forest a #1 seed in that tournament. I think they ended up being a 2 seed, and that's the year they lost to Virginia in the second round. So if he hadn't done that, maybe Wake would have won the national championship. Who's to say? But I would say David Thompson, Jim Valvano.
Oh, I think he cut out. Damn.
Wait for it.
I think he cut out.
Is that a Sox?
Yeah,
poster?
definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll let him know.
Oh, here we go.
You guys still have
Hey.
me?
Yeah, just cut out. So pick it. I'll edit all this. Don't worry. But
Yeah.
So you'll pick it up from Jim Valvano. Or you want to start it again?
Yeah, no problem.
Like you were recapping. That's all.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, I've not always known the most about NC State basketball, but I think David Thompson definitely belongs there. Jim Valvano belongs there. You could certainly make the argument for Julius Hodge, and the last one could be up to interpretation for someone who might be a little more tuned into it historically than I was.
Cat Barber. There you go.
He's a Cat Barber. I remember Cat Barber a little bit, and like BJ Anya and all that.
Oh wow!
Oh,
Whoa.
BJ Anya,
BJ Anya.
dude. Holy
That's
shit.
a great one.
That was
Wow.
a big boy.
Well, he they've got Manny Bates now, who's a redshirt freshman, and he's setting all the new block records, and he's the one he has to live up to in terms of blocks is BJ Anya. So,
what about Dennis Smith Jr.? He can't get on that list.
Well, he certainly should not if we don't get to play in the tournament next year. Although that's more the fault of Mark Gottfried, but.
Well, I think we said impact on the program, not positive impact
Oh,
on the
that's
program,
true.
right?
True.
So that's still an impact
Well,
on the program.
He did have that dunk after the buzzer against Duke. So
Yeah, very important. Yeah, very important.
Pretty great moment in the context of NC State's history in the 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Max, thank you so much for hopping on and talking a little NC State and providing a lot more insight into your awesome video. Like I said, Lord knows we needed it during these times. So thank you for your service, and we'll catch you on down the road.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, and only like 360 days until the next NCAA tournament.
You just completely unwound all the goodwill that you built up with that comment. But yes, you're right.
Hey, we've turned the page. We're on to next year. I'm okay with it. I'm fine.
Again?
No, you're good. All right. But now I'm going to end the broadcast.